Is it 6:30? Hello, strangers. It's been a while. I will start with a roll call. We have Steve Whitman, Bonnie Sears, Bridget Powers, myself, Rebecca Hansen, Bill Bolton, and Chris Buckley, and also Brian Murphy. We will go into reviewing we have 3 different sets of minutes.
Can I just ask if we can maybe hear from the students first before we get into some of this, so that at least one of them can return to his job?
To his job.
Not our problem.
No, but just
Thank you.
in case we
Yep.
start talking and time goes by.
If it was 1 set of minutes, but it's 3 sets of
But
minutes.
it's 3, yeah.
Steve, would you like to introduce your class?
They're
your
gonna
students.
they're actually gonna handle it. I'll hand it right over to Henry. Yeah.
Plymouth Planning Board, how are you?
Fine.
Good.
All right. No, all right.
We're at like a rock concert.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. I forgot my guitar. Sorry. So, quick introductions. Myself, Henry Casey.
I'm Sam Casey.
I'm Cody St. Pierre. Cool.
Hi.
We're 3 representatives today, representing an 8-person class.
Mhm.
Steve's class, community research experience. Yeah, that's the right word, right? I don't know why. Anyways, yeah, so I just wanted to tell you all a little bit about our class. Like I said, 8 people, but it's better as a small group because there's more input from each other. We're well versed, all of us. There's a lot of skills in our class, a lot of GIS, a lot of planning experience. I did an internship at LRPC over the summer, still working there currently. So I'm pretty well versed in this process. But I can say the same for not the job, but a lot of planning experience has been circling around in our class. So we're pretty well versed in this, and I think we'll do some good work for your guys, and we're excited. So I just wanted to take a moment for you guys to introduce yourselves to us so we can get to know you more and, yeah, start a rapport. Want to go left to right, I guess? My left.
Brian Murphy, I'm the Land Use and Planning Director and minute taker for the Planning Board.
I'm Chris Buckley. I'm the vice chair. Is that what I am?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm the vice chair. I couldn't remember what the exact title was on the
Assistant.
planning board. I've been here on the board for a few years, and yeah, excited to work with you.
I'm Bill Bolton. I'm the Select Board Representative assigned to the Planning Board. And we have LRPC as far as our Planning Commission. We moved from North Country Council to LRPC. And I visited there a couple times. I didn't see you, but that's okay.
Maybe I'm Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. So.
Did you go to the annual meeting?
I did. I think I did see you there.
Okay, I was probably sitting at your table. I was sitting with staff.
Well, I was bartending that event.
So you would have
me
seen
there.
it.
Yeah.
Frequently, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get paid twice?
No, they didn't pay me during the summertime, but I did get some good tips on that.
Yeah.
It's fun. I met some really cool people too.
Good.
So, anyways.
Well, thank you.
Rebecca Hansen, I am the chair of the planning board. I've been on the board since 2014.
Bridget Powers, been on the board for a couple of years.
Bonnie Sears, I've been here for a little over a couple of years.
Steve Whitman, alternate to the planning board. Very proud to be the alternate. I've been on the board for a couple of years as well, and excited to have you guys here.
Well, great to formally meet you all, and I'm going to hand it over to Sam to talk about our first of 2 projects we want to work with you guys with.
Okay, so we want to help with the project of rezoning some of the districts in Plymouth. Generally, we want to do this so that we can make it easier to follow and more welcoming for businesses to come in. But also, we looked at the potential growth and future development map in the master plan and noticed a few of the areas, the one by Mayhew Highway or Turnpike, and how that is one of the potential growth areas, but it's currently in the agricultural district. So if we changed things like that to be better regulated in the end, and just a few other things like that. And yeah.
So the second piece of what we're working on in class is something that's already in the master plan. I only brought 5 maps. I didn't know how many people were in here. These are just the corridors, the potential recreation corridors. That, it's already in the master plan. As a class, we will be walking there next week to.
I'll share with you.
Yeah, so these are already in the master plan, and yeah, as a class, we're going to be walking, surveying, just kind of getting an overall feel of how these trails are doing. And as a class, we kind of want to look at these trails and make them better. As a 4-year, I'm a senior year at Plymouth State. When I was a freshman here, I didn't have a car, and getting from downtown Plymouth to, let's say, Tenny Mountain or Smith Bridge or out of the center circle, it's tough, especially with you're walking down Highland Street and you have cars whizzing past you 50 miles per hour. It just
Wasn't me.
probably me. I don't.
Slow, what are you talking about?
But yeah, we just want to look at these trails, work with you guys to upgrade, connect, possibly make a. I think it might be good to make a bike accessible to, say, someone is working, in the new market basket that's being put up, and they need to get to work. You got to find a safe way for that student to get there, or even local resident to get there.
Colby, can you point them to which trail we're going to focus on?
Yeah. So what trail we're going to be walking on next week is the community gardens to the Smith Bridge.
Which is the one we talked about when we were out on the Tenny Mountain Highway tour. We figured that was a good one to start.
Yeah, I personally never been on that trail, but walking is gonna
Really be there Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday next week is really see like what's going on down there, and we're excited to work with all you guys. And thank you for having us.
Thank
Do you guys have any questions or?
I do, and maybe to you, Steve, as
Yeah.
well. But that's, this trail corridor thing is exactly. I'm also on the Conservation Commission, and that's exactly what we're working on. It might be nice if whoever is involved in that would come to
Sure.
one of our meetings, possibly our next meeting, and
You know when
kind of.
that is?
It's the third Tuesday of the month, so I can't remember that date. And I could, if you think that would be a meeting you could make, I'll alert Lisa tonight and let her know that.
Let her know, and then between the 8 students, we'll find somebody, a
Okay.
pair of people that could go. The intent for picking these 2 projects, I talked with the students a little bit. The first week of school, it became really apparent that almost all 8 of them have a significant amount of GIS experience and a lot of planning experience, as Henry said. The zoning piece was the piece that we've talked about the most, like needing some help kind of in between meetings, taking all the notes from what we've talked about so far, and then I'll have the notes from tonight's discussion, just feedback from the Tenny Mountain Highway Tour, and working with them to help put together kind of summary sheets, get feedback from the board, do some case study research to show if there are different types of regulatory models that we want to look at, where are those being used now, what does that look like if it's built. They're actually going out and doing field work in pairs next Thursday and visiting the other zones that we haven't visited. We visited the Village Commercial Zone as a class, and we'll work on that all together because it's so complicated. And we'll work on the agricultural zone together with all of you. But some of the other zones, I want them to go out and really just kind of look at existing conditions, look at the zoning, look at the master plan. The trail was to give them something that's kind of non-regulatory in nature that would also help move the master plan ahead. And when Bill, I think, made a comment when we were touring out there about, it'd be nice to get some funding and to get this together. We don't have anything to show except this. Right. It's not very, encouraging to a funder. So what they'll be able to do is help us look at existing conditions through the GIS, look at how you could stitch a corridor through there. And we've already started looking at an article that they're going to be reading for next week from the Rails to Trails Conservancy on building trails in sensitive habitats, which this is one. So being mindful of the fact that it is a floodplain, there are wetlands, there are other features. I think that they can start to build a case with input from the Conservation Commission, from the Planning Board, and then we can give feedback. And we could end up with a nice little summary document and a map that we could maybe go after funding for. That was the thought, if it makes sense to the board.
It sounds great. Yeah, if we can do anything to support your work, let us know. I'm sure if you need class visits or anything in between meetings, we can, between the however many of us, we can probably find
Right.
somebody to help as well.
Do you want to talk about kind of timeline going forward?
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask also if there's any work that you guys have done in the past that we can work on instead of, repeating ourselves and take anything that helps at all. Timeline, of course, will be, or not us three, but we'll come back eventually. But we'll have representatives from the class come back every planning meeting just to update. We'll do updates in between them as well if you'd like. But yeah, we plan on getting these projects done by the end of the class this semester.
So our thought was if we were going to continue to commit to the first Thursday, there'll be some representative from the class providing an update, bringing materials. If there are some things where it would be helpful to check in, we'll give you all a heads up so that we're not surprising you. And I think the Conservation Commission, that was something I hadn't even thought of yet. So that's a good thing. We can get moving on.
There's some private folks out there, and they're hard to dig up.
Yes.
I do know a fellow lives on New Hebron Road who actually has reclaimed the wood road between New Hebron and Old Hebron. So it leads almost directly to the Walter, or the Plymouth Mountain Trailhead.
I think I know the gentleman in which you're speaking.
Mr. Noyes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not going to end up probably focusing out there yet.
You're right.
We'll start
As far
with
as
this
adding
northern
things
one.
to maps and,
Yeah.
and, things to look into
Sure.
and to hammer down, because that was one of the conversations we had was we don't have like a conservation lands map, nor do
Right.
we have the fund features map, and we can meld them all together into one, and see how they overlap.
Yeah, I think this first project could lead to building out that map exactly. And I think with the Conservation Commission's involvement, especially the piece that goes from Tenny Mountain Highway, north side of Tenny Mountain Highway over to Smith Bridge potentially, knowing that there are some large private landowners that are in there that we've talked about, if the Conservation Commission would then have draft material that they could meet with those folks and talk about getting an easement, it might be easier. So that was our hope too. And it's only over the next couple months, so it's going to be relatively quick.
I think this is great. I think it's great for us. It sounds like a fun project for you guys.
Let's swap.
Yeah, right?
But you want them to sit here and you want to go to class?
I mean, if class involves
should do
taking
it.
a walk
You
in the
should
woods,
sit
that
here.
sounds good.
Awesome.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you.
Good job. Back to work. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for bumping them ahead. Don't want to leave the patrons at Biederman's waiting for
Oh, the bartender?
beverages, yeah. All right, so minutes. We have the minutes from July 11th, July 18th, and August 1st. Any, let's just start with the July 11th ones. Any edits, comments, anything?
Well, on the third page, number 7, there's a dangling 5 at the end.
A dangling, oh yeah.
And then number 9, I read twice, doesn't make sense to me. Plenty of opportunity in whatever the Tenny Mountain Corridor District is, or whatever the gateway districts are, and there will be controls and opportunities for people, so it's shifting development, not removing development. Is there punctuation missing, or I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean.
I know what it's supposed to mean, but you're right. It's confusing.
There should be a comma after R. I think
What if we-
the point was that there would be controls in place,
Right.
even if they shift. Well,
We're not diminishing the opportunity. We're just kind of like fine tuning the district boundaries.
So what if we say period after whatever the gateway districts are, and then there will be controls and opportunities for people, period. It's shifting development, not removing development, period. It's putting it where the infrastructure is. Does that work? Just breaking into separate sentences? Anything else on these minutes?
Nope.
Is everyone okay? Do we want to take, oh, go ahead.
I had one thing here, I just skipped over it, but anyway, when it has the names, the call of the roll members, Bill Bolton, usually doesn't it say that he's a representative from the selectmen's, or does it need to say
It
that?
does in the
Yeah.
next.
In all but the 11th.
Yep. Oh,
Good catch.
it doesn't say it on the first either, but yeah.
Which one were you absent from, Bill?
So that's-
None. He was at all.
I'll ask that.
No,
that
but
is
it
clear.
just doesn't have that he's
Right.
representing the.
Nope, that's good.
Do we want to vote on these one at a time, or are we good if we just vote on all three, a slate of?
I won't be able to vote on,
Okay, so let's do them
First one,
individually.
that
Okay. All right, so no more edits on the July 11th. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion, we will accept these minutes?
Approve?
Approve these
Yeah.
minutes?
With corrections.
Oh, yes, with corrections.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, July 18th. Oh, we have 1, 2, 3. I guess we have all of us that were here. Do we not have Mary Ann that day?
I believe no. The 18th,
We only had 4 of us here for that meeting?
that was why we didn't.
That's right, yeah.
Approve the minutes, I think,
Okay, great.
from the 1st or the 11th.
Because we don't have Mary Ann as excused.
yeah.
Right. She should be, right.
And I just feel like with 4 of us there, at least we didn't approve anything, so it's fine.
Yeah, it says tabled lack of quorum
Right.
under item
I think it was
1.
lack of quorum with the number,
Based on
with
the
the,
people.
who were at the, who
Oh, who were
had
at that
attending the
11th meeting?
previous.
Okay.
I think we must have had Mary Ann at that meeting. I wonder,
Were she mentioned in the minutes themselves? Or?
I don't see her mentioned.
No.
no, but she's not the noisiest of board members either, so. I just look at 4 people, and I guess we didn't reach a decision, but I feel like that would have triggered something if we had 4 people for a public hearing. Right?
It would have been had Chris not been absent from the other. You weren't there for the 11th, correct, Chris?
Right.
So you only had 3 members.
We're okay, so we couldn't approve the minutes,
Couldn't
but we
approve
can
the
have a
minutes.
hearing.
But we can have hearing, okay, all right. That was what was confusing for me. Any comments from,
Mary Ann might be there, might have attended them regardless. You can check the video, maybe.
Yeah, I'll see if she was here, I'll add her to the minutes.
Okay.
If not,
okay, great. Any comments, edits on these minutes? Any?
I only had a question,
Yeah.
and it's probably all right, it's when they get talking about the tanks being put in, it says there will be some clearing in order to site the tanks. Was that supposed to be site or set?
Site.
site,
It is
either way.
site. Okay,
Absolutely.
because I'm reading that and I'm saying, God, that's probably right, but to me, I would have written, sit
Better to
sit
ask.
down. So, yeah, that was, and then the only other one that I found was on the next page on number 3, where Dean Yetton built first plant. Should there be built the first plant in 1962? And that's all I have for that.
On that same page, under Administrative Matters, number 2, experiencing more frequent floods due to surface erosion, DUE, not DO.
Any other edits, corrections, motions?
I will make a motion that we approve these minutes with corrections.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Well, you know what? I wasn't there.
I'll abstain. You'll abstain.
Abstain. Got so into the proofreading.
Okay,
So
So, you can't,
okay, so you can, we
it's
get,
5 and 1.
you can't vote on it.
Right.
Can you make a motion on it?
Can you make a motion on it if you weren't there?
Probably shouldn't.
Yeah, let's redo that.
Do over.
Yep, yep. Rewind.
Andrew,
right.
strike that from there.
so I'll make
Anyone
Bridget's.
except for
Bridget or Steve.
like to make a motion on this.
I would do that.
So the motion on the table is to approve the minutes with corrections.
Yes.
All right,
I would second that.
okay. Now, we're going to take a vote, but Steve and Bridget can't vote. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great. August 1st.
I have one.
Yeah,
Page on the backside, public hearing opens. First sentence, Max Lager thinks they will pack the lot, they pave the lot. There's a discussion.
or is it pack the lot with
That's what I remember.
That was tanks?
Tanks and trucks and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Thinks they will pack the lot. Got it, okay.
Or fill, I don't know if that's weirdly, it
I
seems
mean,
like it could be better
she might have
worded,
taken it verbatim, too.
Yeah.
That's fine. If they, I question it because it didn't make sense to me. And I remember there was a conversation about paving, and I know this isn't really a full record of.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So should we add with tanks, just to clarify that?
I think tanks and trucks, I think that's what he was
Yeah.
worried about.
So I think that since this is the record of our entire work session, which includes the field trip as well, I don't think we need much detail from the field trip, except saying that we visited the following sites as part of our master plan implementation project. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just to try to close the gap between 5:50 and 7:38.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of work by.
Sat in silence for 2
Yeah.
hours. And then
Yeah.
All right, so, so as part of the master plan implementation, we visited the following sites. And we started with
Commerce Park?
Commerce Park, yep. That's the
We
one.
did?
Yeah, after
Yeah.
the
Yep,
site review.
Commerce Park.
Is that where the storage tanks are?
No,
That's-
the one where the kind of newish strip mall.
Is that where we started? I forgot.
By
where we
Yetton
started.
Road. Yeah,
And then we went up to Boulder Point.
right, Boulder Point after that.
I thought we started at the
Town
tanks.
Town West
Well,
Road.
we did, but this is after the tanks
Oh,
were done.
oh,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Then
There you
Town
go.
West.
And the liquor store.
Where was
Yeah, the
I?
liquor store, yeah. And then
say
We went to
Riverside.
Hannaford first.
Oh, Hannaford and then Riverside Landing. Is that it?
And then ATC.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. So Hatch Plaza,
All roads lead there.
Yeah.
Hatch Plaza, Riverside Landing, and then Sanctuary ATC.
Correct. Good.
Any other corrections or additions?
I only have this same one I found before with Bill Bolton, representative for the selectmen. Wasn't put in there. I don't know, does it have to be? But sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. I didn't know if, just thought it was worth mentioning.
I think you should deserve the credit. You
Yeah.
did 2 jobs.
Gosh darn it.
Right.
All right. Would someone like to make a motion to approve these minutes as corrected?
So moved.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to administrative matters.
Okay, it took me some ciphering to get through the Stone Road engineering. There was a bit of a disconnect, we may have noticed, between the engineering and the intent of the parent company. that came up when we were talking. The engineer kind of acted like
Yeah.
he didn't really know what we were talking about. So he delivered not 3 plats, but 3 sets of plans. They do show the vegetative cover to remain, and the tank storage areas adjacent to the oil fill up. Once you dig down through them, and at the end of the meeting, I'll pull those pages out, Madam Chair, and have you sign them.
Okay.
And I had a copy of the NOD just to make sure that everything that we had asked for was on there, and it was.
So the fuel part, the truck parking as well.
Yes,
Or parking
the
the
fuel
paint.
tank storage area designated on the plan, fuel truck parking area. They showed existing parking identified.
Yep.
They did designate the storage areas adjacent to the Phillips station as storage areas on the plat. So I think they satisfied the requirements of the board. Secondly, we had a voluntary merger up on the Chattering Lane subdivision up on top. And this is all done, says the merger of the foregoing lots of parcels was approved administratively by the town planner on behalf of the planning board pursuant to RSA 674:39A. So they met all the requirements as far as the, tax things and the deeds and all the other stuff. So I just wanted to let you know that we have one less lot in town.
So it's like it's a reverse subdivision, basically.
Correct. And it's totally voluntary. I mean, they don't, all they got to do is follow the, I guess more like fiduciary laws to make sure that the deeds match and, everything like that. And then it's kind of out of our hands. I
then
don't even know why we would want to get involved other than that.
Oh, because then they can get one tax bill for the one parcel.
Correct.
But if they wanted to split it again in the future, they have
Then
to
they'll
subdivide.
come back to you.
Right.
Fortunately, they were 2 compliant lots, so if they decide to do that in the future, but they just wanted to have a little bit extra elbow room and locate an accessory structure on that property. And I also have the AOT from Ambrose, if anybody wants to read through it. I talked to Bill about it a little bit earlier, concerns about drainage from Burlap, but we had the discussion here at the board, and because it's all sand, I don't think, and they did show that it was going to contain any runoff within the site, and then to filter out from there. So I don't know. I think they satisfied us in that regard. Mostly, I think the board was concerned with the reconstitution of the property when they're done with their gravel operations. And that'll be for somebody else to follow up on, I think, because that'll probably be in operation for a good number of years. But they've satisfied everything that we have asked for them. And like I said, this will be in the property record file until we run out of room, and then it'll get dumped, because it won't be applicable anymore. There was something else I wanted to touch on. Oh, yes, Walmart. Walmart underwent site plan review for the canopy structure for their online pickup. I got a call 2 days later. They don't want to do it. So I guess the easiest way to rescind a site plan approval is just not to vest it. That way they don't have to do anything going forward. They voluntarily withdrew it. They are going back to just painted lines in the parking lot. As we had discussed here, that doesn't trigger site plan review because it's internal circulation. Where it's going to be located as well is not in the general circulation of the traffic. It's off to one side, almost at the bank where the dentist is. So they were taking over part of the parking lot in the front, but they're shifting back to the side. And that may shift again, but again, it's just lines on paint. Hannaford did the same thing. And going under the guidance that the board had given me before as far as how to approach these things. They had proposed no structures at all. So I took it upon myself to say it's a building permit question. Having had the conversation here and knowing just what the parameters were, but it was pretty clear with the Walmart proposal, that the whole thing hinged around the structure itself and not the use or the repainting of the parking areas. So, again, administrative decision. If you see otherwise, then I would gladly speak to them about it, but I don't just shoot from the hip a lot of times on this. So had we not had the conversation, I would have delayed it and had them come back before you, to be honest with you.
I'm good with that.
And that's it from Town Hall.
Could I revisit a couple of those?
Yeah.
So have you seen the clearing that went out on the, for the, the oil thing?
Yeah.
There's a lot of trees there.
There's a lot of trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I wasn't picturing that. That was.
No, I wasn't picturing that either, and it does say that, says something about there will be some clearing in order to site the tanks.
Yeah, it kind of got
Yeah.
shaved.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like more than an acre shaved?
I don't know.
Okay.
No, but noticeably, like driving by at the speed limit, you can see that there's a bunch of trees.
Got it.
And if you go, what's the old Yetton Road? You can kind of see it, like a pier.
Really?
Yeah, there's still like, trees. There's like a border, but trees. And regarding, the Horizons Engineering thing, Brian?
Yes.
There was, on the map, a residential zone, a general residential zone in Bridgewater. I know it's out of our jurisdiction, but are they allowed to, like, excavate in, general residential?
That's a question for Bridgewater.
It's just off the hip. Yeah.
And they have an existing operating gravel operation in Bridgewater already. So, again, it's Bridgewater. If
I'm
And they
using your
didn't
expertise.
weigh in when we asked for a comment on that. So, we did our duty by declaring it a development of regional impact and notifying the abutters. We did have Mike Capsalis here, the chair of their board. He didn't indicate that there was an issue there. And again, we did what we had to do.
Yeah, I'm just picking your brain because when we do our site review on Perlac,
But you ignore municipal boundaries for the most part, right? Because you're looking at the watershed and not
That's
the
it.
political line.
Yep.
That would have been their opportunity to yay or nay it because they were actually notified twice. They tried to jump the gun on us, and I answered their questions, and then we did it formally afterwards. So, if there was an issue, I think it would have been, on Mike's and Terry Murphy's responsibility to bring it forward to us.
Right.
But, again, that's the vagaries of political subdivisions.
And there's no standard definition for, a residential district and what the uses are. So it could be an
Like
allowed use.
Right.
Like they're excavating in an agricultural zone too, so,
Right. Right.
All right, so I'll be nice to him.
Going back to the Stone Road Energy, do you believe that the vegetative cover was cut back even further than what's depicted on the plan? Because those tanks are pretty long. Remember,
They are big.
they were,
yeah.
the nose of the tank was at the edge of the clearing, according to the stakes that they put out.
Yeah.
So it's 47 feet back from there, plus whatever the scaling there is, 5 feet to the fence, so call it another 10 feet beyond the fenced area is where or beyond the tanks is where the woods will be.
I'm inclined to think that it probably was what was on the plan.
It just
but
looks different.
It looks a lot.
Well, the guy across the street from me cut part of his lot.
Yeah, I saw that today.
It's amazing, how much light there is now. And
My neighbor
it was
cut
very
down
small.
2 trees in his yard and I have to wear sunglasses doing my dishes sometimes during the day, so.
And I think they also need room to get in there and do the site work and all
Yeah.
that. And then some of that will revegetate. But I can see how it would probably be alarming to see it the first time.
Okay, are we good to move on to the master plan?
Yes.
Quick update on the maps from North Country Council.
That's in the,
I last heard from them on the 7th of August saying I'll get you the maps by the end of the week. I don't have the maps. So I sent a reminder email yesterday, so I'll just keep a monthly ping on them until we can get some of that stuff. So it sounded like there's some corrupted layers or something like that, but yeah. Maybe it's not as easy as I thought it would be.
I think too, it's going to become a non-issue. Like the fact that we've gone out and done the field work we did that hopefully we can talk about for a few minutes tonight.
Yeah.
And then directing the students, I'm going to have them come back next month with some kind of summaries for all the districts based on what we've talked about and kind of asking for some next steps from us. And when we get to a point that we have some rough idea, like where these gateway districts are, the changes to the village commercial and all that, they can whip up a map for us. There's like 7 of them like dying to do mapping. So let's take advantage of it. That's a benefit that I couldn't have foreseen. So I think we can get ourselves to a really good draft map, and then there'll be other students that we can get to go in and refine it when we get further down after they're gone.
Yeah, let's make sure we get it all packaged.
Exactly, yeah. And I'll look to you for some advice on that too, just to make sure that what we're getting is going to be in a place and with a level of detail that is going to be useful.
Yep.
And I'm also happy to have Zach take a look at it too. He's been their instructor, and
He's working for you now.
yeah, and we could maybe keep the files at our place.
Yep. Great.
So do you just want to have people share observations and thoughts on Tenny Mountain Highway, or did you have?
I didn't have a formal plan for this evening, but yeah, I think it's because it's been a month and then some since we were there, so it's been a little while. But I think maybe recapping some of our discussion. I think the nature of what we were doing means we don't obviously have detailed minutes from that as well. But yeah, so let's maybe talk about what we saw during the site visit. We can go space by space if we want. Do we want to start talking about Commerce Park?
Sure. I'm going to be taking some notes, so.
So I think what we talked about there is just how removed it is from everything else. And again, parking in front of the building. I don't know, what do the other people remember? Because that might be.
I thought it was more of like an example of like older usage, versus multi-use, just a strip mall. And there still might be an opportunity to build on that as well. But
Oh, we had talked about the space behind it as well.
Right.
A lot of vacancy in that.
I also remember talk about, instead of it just being like a long strip mall, that they would go up more on different things in the future, like an upstairs for another business rather than stretching it out this way.
Right, and if that's what we want to encourage in the future, our regulations have to say that. One of the things I didn't, so go up in the future. One of the things I really like about that development that I don't think I said was the way it comes in off the side street as opposed to coming in off
Yeah.
Tenny Mountain Highway.
Yeah, that really is good.
Yeah.
I think we also talked a bit about it as just because it's remoteness to the more dense-ish development of Tenny Mountain Highway, it seems to be maybe a little foretelling of what could be if we're not deliberate about where we want density versus more spread out development. So,
Right. And they've been challenged there having occupancy as part of that, which we don't want to see. We don't want to see people invest and then not be able to be successful. Anything else on Commerce Park? That's a pretty good list. So the next stop was Bulger Point.
it's the future.
Bill Bolton says the future.
I guess that's some
Tell me
slightly-
why, so I can write it down.
It's about old
It's
people.
an
and-
amazing space that can be utilized for anything.
Amazing why.
Amazing because, actually, it's a very nice site to, it's not like very undulating. It's like pretty much a flat, rounded, area. that's quite large.
And it's a beautiful view.
It's a gorgeous view.
It
I didn't,
is.
yeah.
It's a shame to waste it on a business, but anyway.
Depends on what kind of business, right?
Huh?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
So good development potential, views.
And it'd be either commercial and or residential. You got health facilities out there, lovely big department store, dental.
I mean, it has that, the Boulder Point Road, I think, is another example of like access management where we have a light, but we have one road going off and then we have all these businesses and really,
Unfortunately, we got two lights, you know,
Yes, we
serving the
do.
same thing. You know, so
do.
that was kind of like a unfortunate build out of a driveway that may not have been needed, but
right.
and it also could be one of the terminus for Town West. So you get a parallel traffic pattern.
Any deficiencies in Boulder Point that we saw?
Sidewalks.
Okay.
Grade,
What was that?
grade.
Grade. Just the challenge of,
It is.
yeah,
I mean, it's visually, in the winter, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
am I gonna make it? And
grade,
You always do.
right. Yeah, it is quite a climb. Okay. There's water and sewer, correct? Is there water and sewer at the Commerce Park? I know you told us where the line went, I just don't remember. I just want to make notes of that too,
There's
infrastructure.
sewer.
Only
I'd have
sewer.
to check with Joe if there's water. There might be a well there. The water stops at just past Walmart because they brought it through there and they stubbed it roughly at the Hamilton Way subdivision.
Okay. Okay, so
So,
at least sewer.
yeah, and they'd be more than happy to extend it at the, you know, someone's request and money.
If there was enough density of development that would happen there.
Yeah, or if, you know, if it developed one off, then they would extend it as needed
Got it.
at the cost of the landowner.
Okay,
Um,
thank you.
So if like a apartment building went in or something like that, it would make more sense maybe to get on the public water
Right,
supply
right.
and to create a public water supply.
All right,
Town West.
Town West.
Change the traffic flow to
At
that
the entrance?
of Town West. Yeah, we can have a parallel. Were we talking about like the actual road, or just talking about?
Initially the development, but you're talking about connecting.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's where we started talking about traffic circles all over Tenny Mountain Highway.
Yeah, we did.
Right.
All right, what else?
well, that road itself could add another business layer. I mean,
More density?
Yeah,
more density, but also facing a new road, you know, that's calmer and no logging trucks flying by.
Yeah, right.
We also started to talk a little bit more about what the street frontage looks like, where are cars parking. Maybe not necessarily in the front of the buildings, but behind them, so it just aesthetically looks a little nicer.
Yep. That was also a nice example of multi-story building.
Yep.
It had reasonably good architectural, I mean, basic, like not, we're not asking for fancy,
Yep.
but it just looked a little bit better. It was a
Not
little
a
bit more
steel building.
density. Not a steel building, right. Not that there's anything wrong with steel buildings, but,
and that may be a reflection of the underlying condominium-style development of that property.
it could be, yeah.
Yeah.
It's always less expensive to build that second floor. And you charge the same as you would for the first floor, so.
Okay, anything else? Hannaford? Well, Hatch Plaza, I guess?
Need to bring back another gas station, Top Gas.
Will you sign an agreement right now to work there again?
It's a lovely job. this summer.
Is there an opportunity, I don't remember if this came up when we were there, is there an opportunity in the board's mind for infill development in that plaza?
Like in
Another
the parking
dollar
lot.
store. Is
Like
there
a
one
development within, not only within the plaza structure itself, but within the parking lot?
Yes, actually, they approached me for that, just as kind of a question going forward. And I believe, I didn't run the numbers. That parking lot is huge.
It is huge.
And even, Thanksgiving, it's still
Huge.
And what's weird about it is it's so huge that it's packed over by the
Yes.
store, and then it's totally empty. in
Exactly,
that.
and I think that they were looking at
Yeah.
that as far as siting another building to kind of, make it a square or whatever. I don't know that they're capable of going up
Okay,
with what they have.
right. But they could come out along Tiny Mountain Highway.
Yeah, they
and then-
could strike another L off of Marshall's, for example.
Right, or a
Or they
separate
could have a
building.
freestanding somewhere in the parking lot. So, that'd be a good place for infill development.
Yep.
Yeah, and
That has all services there.
as we keep talking about this too, just thinking about what our parking requirements, parking space requirements are in our zoning ordinance, because I think a lot of ours are framed as minimum. And so I think some developers will try and go above and beyond. I know certain business or certain corporations have their corporate number of parking spaces per square foot, but just thinking about how we're framing our parking spaces, that more isn't necessarily better,
Right.
so.
And it may have been
I'll
that they
flag
didn't know
that.
who the tenants would be,
Yep.
so they ascribed the maximum number of
Yep.
spaces for the square footage.
And I think there's a strategy to overbuild your parking lots, just with that in mind, that in the future, then you have the space to put your Applebee's or whatever usually, comes later.
That has become a strategy, I think. I was just seeing a lot of these parking lots, especially like an older
Yeah.
development
But
like
the
that.
Tanger outlet, when they put the Old Navy right in the middle of it.
Yeah. It actually helps, though. I mean, it breaks
does.
up that giant area, gives the pedestrian something to aim for.
Yeah.
And then with the, whatever it is, Starbucks and Five Guys on the other side, it starts to fill in. Doesn't feel so enormous.
Yeah.
A little less sort of straight line sprawly and
Right.
a little more neighborhoody-ish.
Yeah, and a
So
little
is
bit
it-
more density.
Yeah.
Is it possible to encourage someone that is proposing a new development somewhere other than a place like that to say, hey, look, here's a space right here that maybe you could consider, rather, I don't know, it seems like we have places exactly like that.
It's tough for the
Like-
planning board to do that. It's one thing for staff in a side conversation
I
to
could
give
talk
them.
to the folks at Drucker and say, hey, we just had this idea, would you be on board with contemplating another building on your lot? And, it would serve double duty, either it fills up their lot, or they bring new business to town.
Right. And they bring new business to their site and maybe fills up the rest of their units.
Correct.
Because there's definitely some vacancy in there too.
Yeah, and, I think that they would be loath to develop the parking lot as long as they do have vacancies in the main building.
And part of changing maybe the configuration of the I always get messed up, ICD, but the Tenny Mountain Highway Industrial Commercial District, if you have a million options, why would you ever look at going in that parking lot? But if you're trying to focus development into some different shapes, into some of the areas that we started talking about, then it starts to make sense. And if we could make sure that the parking and other regulatory requirements don't create a barrier for someone to do that, it's going to be an easier path for them to getting an approval. We're going to look at that. And then Brian, or an economic development director or whatever, can start to tell people that story.
It's a nice idea.
Think about it though, like it's useless for parking because you need a shuttle to bring you to where, to park over in that corner. It's always empty. You can always find a parking place.
A lot
out
of
there,
commuters.
It ends up being a park and ride.
but- Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
which has value.
But a business coming in would be good over at that other end for them, because if I'm shopping at Hannaford and this business is something that I really want something at, but if it's way up the road from here, I might say, well, I'm not going today. I'm here, I'll go over.
Right.
So I think that's what a lot of people would figure, so they would do good there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then coming down Tenny Mountain Highway, you wouldn't just see the hillside, the
Yeah.
expanse of like whatever's parked there.
You see this two-story, clapboard building that fits within the, context of our architecture.
Hides Hatch Plaza behind
Yeah.
it.
So are there commuters there? So there are a lot of commuters, or,
Yeah, I've used it a bunch of times meeting people.
Yeah.
Big groups too.
I've used it as a park and ride.
Yeah, we used it.
I've used it too, but I didn't know how many people actually would be there.
Yeah. I don't know, it's huge as far as a destination for park and ride, but it gets
Is that like
some
an
regular
official
use.
park and ride stop?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, it's not.
Lowercase p.
Nor is it officially a street to drive through the Hannaford parking lot, but lots of people like to do that.
Maybe we could change that then.
That really bothers me.
No, there's not gonna be a stoplight out there. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that, but,
This is gonna be a rotary?
yeah, it's gonna be, no, DOT said they might, consider like removing it.
Removing the one at,
Everything that they do is done by what they call a warrant, and it's done by the traffic on the road. And they did say at the last meeting when we were talking to them about the rotary, that they're starting to fail on that warrant as far as trips or people using it. And I don't know how they would, it must have to do with the left turn
Is this
signal.
the Hatch Plaza Tenny Mountain Highway light?
Yeah.
Okay. Because they just removed a bunch of lights in Littleton.
Oh, yeah? Ah,
They shut them off initially and had signs up.
yeah, no, they said the first they'll blink it.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
they'll remove it, but if needed. I can't imagine, this is gonna be another, I'm probably talking too much about it, but, another Smith Bridge thing.
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, that would be dangerous there.
That's
I've
the
been in and out of
original
there.
light.
Yeah, I know, that's our one light
Is it
town.
historic?
When I learned to drive, it was a big deal when I got to that light.
Anything else about Hatch Plaza? Okay. What's their next stop?
Riverside Landing.
Observations?
We saw some deer.
Yes, we did.
I think the biggest takeaway from that was the rec path.
Yep.
Trail. Right. And it's another case of one entrant, well, it's going to be two entrances, but, and then internal circulation, which is way better than a million driveways.
Yes.
That's it, from an access management perspective.
Really just is how that lot gets subdivided or how that lot gets developed. So, I mean, I guess that one would have been a little tricky, but, if everything had gotten subdivided, and then there'd be a bunch of access points, but because it was developed as a big chunk, you get a little bit more of that kind of structure.
I can't remember whether it was there or whether it was somewhere else, but there's not much landscaping to speak of in many of these
that was
places.
where we parked.
Yeah, there was that
And-
one island or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah,
a lot
because
of
it's
construction trucks there,
Construction, I think they put it up, because you looked around to the other side and it was
was good.
very well maintained.
Yeah.
But that one strip, right, between the McDonald's and the entry to the Market Basket
Yes.
area, which is the outside of the parking lot for the liquor store. Yeah, the landscaping was abused,
Oh, yeah.
so.
Were you thinking you wanted to see more landscaping on
I
top of
am,
that?
Yeah.
And to sort of add on to that, I think that it would be nice if it wasn't like one and done. You plant the stuff and then, all right, we fulfilled our, that people maintain their landscaping, which rarely happens in those kind of applications.
On the topic of landscaping and maintenance, I also think our regulations aren't super clear. Most towns aren't super clear on if we had a willingness to allow them to integrate some of their stormwater management techniques with their landscaping, more of the green space would be visible instead of under parking lots. Because it would be cheap, it'd be on the surface, they could still have those subsurface structures, but we'd end up kind of buffering some of our green areas because they'd be having multiple functions, not just a mulch bed with a couple of bushes. It would also be a depression that would take in stormwater. And so that's something to think about in this corridor, maybe even in a couple of the other districts, as far as a performance
I
standard.
think like a formal, like retention pond or something like that, because then you have to have
Rain
like
garden?
chain
No,
link fence.
thinking more
and-
like rain gardens, decentralized, but allowing them to say, this is not only just going to be a token landscape strip, it's part of our stormwater mitigation.
Or tree drainage.
Exactly. There's a whole toolbox of things they can
That's
use.
a great idea.
Yeah, so it gets beautified, it decentralizes the stormwater. We should do it on Russell Street, where Frank just told me we have no storm drains. So it would be part of a landscaping standard, could be part of a,
Provide some motivation to actually do it.
right.
There was a story on the radio, I think yesterday, about the relationship between temperature and mental health, and the thing you do about, you know, rising urban temperatures. And I mean, we're adding, even just with the marketplace development, a significant amount of blacktop out there. So, you know,
Right.
adding more trees to buffer that, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
And as far as, you know, flowers, there's certain flowers that you can plant that will come up every year.
Right.
And if people that know how to plant them, they'll plant them so that, okay, this one's up May, and this will
Yeah.
come up in June. So you always got something there.
It's interesting you say that, Bonnie. So we're doing a project for Great Barrington, Massachusetts. We're doing a design for a developer, and we're doing an ecological landscape. And the town of Great Barrington developed a pollinator action plan, and I found it online, and we based our whole design on it. And we went before the planning board a couple weeks ago, and their first question was, did you look at the pollinator action plan? And I said, yes. Did you look at our design? Which it references the whole document,
Yeah,
but it talked about a pollinator calendar,
Yeah.
like having flowers
Yeah,
throughout
and
the
that-
whole
right,
season.
and there's
native
not a lot of
plants.
care.
Right.
You know, they come up here, I mean, that's my goal at my house. I'm sick of planting and doing weed, but, you know, and it does, it looks good the whole summer.
And it would be an easy reference to add. It would also be a fun future project for some students. They can do some kind of pollinator action plan for Plymouth. But it's amazing. It was there as part of their documentation, like a master plan. So we, as the development team, looked at it and said, wow, they're already thinking about this. Let's help them meet their goal.
Yeah,
Um,
makes sense to me.
But meeting a function that's not just aesthetic.
Right. Yeah, it had an ecological function. And they were also doing some of the projects initially, they had some schematics, and they're starting to implement them on their municipal properties to like lead by example, and then build it into their development regulations.
That's really neat.
It was cool. It's a beautifully done document, too.
So you say yourself, or the plan itself? Not your
No,
plan?
Not our plan. Their plan.
It's a beautiful
No,
document.
their plan is gorgeous. Yeah, really is. It's very artistic.
I'm sure yours is lovely too.
Ours is okay. Yeah, in comparison.
It's nice to know that municipalities are concerned with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, flowers make such a difference anywhere, flowers and trees.
Yeah.
Makes it a whole new world.
Other Riverside Landing observations? I mean, I'd love to see more, I guess, encourage more height in those instances. I mean, I think having the separate buildings is good, but allowing them to share parking, like, give more flexibility. Like, what if the liquor store and McDonald's, or the models, their corporate models probably don't allow it, but what if they had some kind of shared parking facility? What if the liquor store could be, have other structures above it? We're seeing, as these liquor stores get built out statewide, really different looking liquor stores in other communities based on the regulations. Ours is okay. It's kind of standard. But yeah, I think like you were saying with condos, like where it's cheaper to go up,
Yeah.
if we can encourage people to give them whatever density they need and give them some clear path to an approval.
But that's kind of limited by the scope of the project, too.
Can be, yeah.
I mean, to put another floor on an acre-and-a-half building, and especially the way the building was designed,
Right,
you couldn't retrofit it, let's put it that way.
right.
And it would really alter the space in the first floor.
This is thinking forward, like if we were to get another development like Riverside
Yeah,
Landing.
but I get your point. I mean, and even if you could say, look, why not lay a foundation for future business here?
Right,
They don't have to develop the entire roof.
Nope.
But they could certainly put, somebody would like to have like rooftop dining or something, or where they don't need street front presence. You know, offices would be perfect for something like that because, you know, it's a beautiful location more than anything else.
Yeah, think about like with that recreation path and that open land behind there, if someone built a restaurant on top of one of those buildings with outside seating, rooftop seating that faced the Baker River,
Yeah.
all that stuff would be working together.
And it doesn't mean that, like, we think of all Tenny Mountain highways having the same rules now. When we start to refine this, there might be one or two locations where we say, everything that goes in now should be 2 stories or bigger. You know, it doesn't have to be all the areas, and they're not all going to see redevelopment because our growth rate's fairly slow. But, you know, you'll get pushback from some people that will say, okay, we're CVS, we don't want to do a second story, so we're not going to go into that district.
Yeah.
But we'll go to Hatch Plaza and we'll do a store. But also, almost all the ones that will object, if they want to be in that community, they'll do it.
Sure.
So CVS was telling the city of Dover that they would not do, they have a 2-story minimum. We won't do a 2-story minimum. And I was in Vermont and took a picture of a 2-story CVS. So they had rented out the upstairs to an architect because they wanted to be in that particular village, so they did it.
Okay.
So if they want to be there, but we could provide them with other alternatives so they don't have to change their model. But there may be places, like it is kind of a wasted opportunity at Riverside Landing. You could have that additional height. It would also impact the view sheds. Maybe there's a trade-off. I don't
That
know.
was a little bit of what I heard about the hotel.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That it looked real big when they were building it because nobody was used to a structure that size in that location. It was stood alone, you know, so of course all eyes were on it.
Yeah, that is the trade-off.
That all went away. I haven't heard a peep about that since.
Change, maybe it's just change.
Yeah, basically, you know, it throws you off. It's like, you know, wow, did they have to cut all those trees? Well, that's what they proposed,
Yeah.
Right.
you know, and then the next time you see it, you go, yeah, that jives with what I saw in the plan, you know. Same with that.
Anything else on Riverside Landing? So we headed over to Smith Bridge and Sanctuary.
Yep.
Thoughts?
Traffic circle.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything that happens there is gonna be up to the state anyway, right?
At
Correct.
the intersection?
Yeah.
But we can weigh in, and we already have.
So what do most people want? Light or the,
Well,
Circle.
DOT is kind of in a quandary because they put in all these lights and they're paying the electric bill on them, even though the developers are paying for the stanchions themselves. You know, a lot of their models are changing as well as everybody else's, I think. And, you know, they've always been looking for alternatives to signalization. But by their own administrative rules, they have to. You know, it's a public safety issue.
yeah.
So, you know, they've done the rotaries, and I thought, well, we don't need another light out there.
Well, and also those lights can fail at different times.
Correct.
You know, you have to get
But
there
if-
and it's like,
You do need a calming presence,
yeah.
and DOT seems to have liked, I don't know if they still love them, the roundabouts. The only problem with that particular one is it would have to be sized for truck traffic. Double truck traffic,
Yeah.
not just your tractor trailer rigs, because the logging trucks that go and they carry that extra trailer.
Oh, you're saying like a tandem trailer.
Correct.
Got it.
So there's 2 ways around that. You make the outside bigger and the inside smaller. So you take a straight shot through the intersection instead of following the paved way all the way around, which is exactly what this one was designed to do.
What is that called again?
The approachable apron?
I've been trying to think of
Yeah.
that
Every
recently.
time I go around
I knew it was apron, but I was like, what kind of apron?
What kind of apron is that?
Approachable apron.
We can all wear approachable aprons in our next meeting.
You know, so that's
gonna be
going to
my
calm the
Halloween
traffic
costume.
heading east-west, and it'll also allow access through from Smith Bridge.
So is it on the table still?
Everything's on the table. I'm going to be talking to LRPC about trying to develop a warrant for Tenny Mountain Highway again.
Okay.
I noticed that after the meeting that we had, suddenly there were traffic counters out on Tenny Mountain Highway. So it's got to be DOT. I just got to find out who, what, and why.
Right.
But I think it's in either support or to prove us wrong about
Right.
that. So one way or the other, we'll have those decent numbers.
They should get out and do an intersection analysis and look at those turning movements like we've all complained about coming out of Smith Bridge.
Oh, God.
The other thing I noted from the Smith Bridge Sanctuary ATC was just looking across the street at the co-op's land and just thinking that someday, if that were ever to be redeveloped, that we should have thought about the zoning for that. And that puts it on the inside of the town west rectangle, right? And I don't know what the answer is, but just wanted to flag it.
Yeah, I don't know if the co-op is going to go out to fairgrounds or if they're going to stay right there.
I mean, even if it's a decade or two out, if we can get any regulations passed at some point, they'll probably still be there. So we should think about trying
Will
to.
not be going away.
No, we should
you're-
probably think about trying to control access points and have internal circulation and some of the better. It's a nice spot. So
And they have two driveways in, one for their trucks, which is at the intersection, and the other one down by the business office. You rarely see vehicles coming or going. Basically, it's just a work truck occasionally will come out. I imagine it's different during storms or, outages and that kind of thing. But that would give them direct access to the highway maintain their direct access to the highway. I think that's a better site for them overall than the fairgrounds development, just from where it is.
okay. Anything else from that location?
The landscaping at Sanctuary is quite nice.
Yeah. And that was really the green building group that.
Yeah. What's the name of the architecture that is, it's an award-winning,
LEED
what's-
certification?
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
LEED
yeah.
certified.
One other thing about landscape maintenance too is it creates local jobs, because if we had a standard that we expected these places, and there's tons of them, and there's going to be more and more to live up to, it wouldn't be the guy who sweeps up the cigarette butts maintaining, it would, they'd have to hire somebody, and that would be good jobs. And you're already starting to see little more and more green landscaping companies starting up. So, and that's that's an easy one for on a small scale. So it's
And that was
available.
an excellent case for repurposing a building.
Yeah.
Just thinking about landscape and maintenance, and how would you go about requiring something like that in a zoning ordinance? I mean, that just seems like something legacy that you could inherit. I'm just not sure how.
I think it could be it could be written up in the land use regulations. We can look at site plan regulations that have that as a condition.
Yeah.
It could be a condition of the site plan itself. I mean, in some cases, it gets way over the top. Like I think for Walmart's, a lot of it was to make sure that the trees that didn't survive were replaced over a certain period of years. So it wouldn't even be on just maintenance. It said like if your landscaping fails.
But I
also
think
have to
that's
replace that.
usually the most egregious thing is when things die,
Yeah.
and you get that brown thing there that stays there for a few years, and finally, they cut that stuff down and put white stones in there, and right? That's what they do, and it's ugly.
We're fortunate that we have quite a few businesses out there that have actually done a really good job. They have contracted for services. So I think we just need to spell it out.
Yeah, generally, if there's a master developer, it's an easier way because it applies to the property as a whole and not to the individual developments. And they generally have a mechanism it's like Riverside Landing. The roads are in between the McDonald's, the bank, and the hotel are owned by the developer. So he's maintaining those. And I'll ask him, just call him tomorrow and say, when they're done with the market basket, what are you doing at the liquor store site? He's one that he'll do what you ask, and he sees the big picture as well. So, and also I was going to talk to him about the rec trail usage. And, at least get a tacit permission for it.
Yeah.
And then we could work on the designation or the prescription later if we needed
Great.
to.
All right. I got those notes down. Thank you.
Who are you talking to, Brian, about that?
Mike McGinley.
Okay, that's, yeah.
Any other discussion on the master plan? So Steve, maybe we can just check in next meeting about next steps and what your class needs from the board and what the board can be doing.
I think we'll be working on it over the next couple of weeks. What will likely happen is we'll come with some draft material. If I can get draft material from them ahead of time that I can send out to the board, I will.
Yeah.
But if nothing else, they'll come and present some draft material. I don't want to commit to what that'll be because I'm not sure yet. But what I'm hoping is kind of at least an improved version of the sheets that you saw that I did for each of the districts. And we can start talking about, well, how should we move these forward? Like, what kind of standards do we want to have? I think we've all spent enough time thinking about it, talking about it, going out, and now they're going to get acquainted. So if you start to talk about some of these districts, I'm hoping they'll be able to keep up, like understand the geography. So that's why I have them out walking around.
Maybe we'll have maps there.
Yeah. Be good.
All right. I have here Frank Miller to report on infrastructure in the Village Commercial District.
Yes. I don't know if you got the handout, what my study was, but I dropped off some handouts. Did you get them? Okay.
I did. I don't know what I did with them, Frank. It's terrible.
I dropped them off this afternoon to give each one of you a copy. First,
I will
my
scan it and email it to you.
My project was to do the inventory of the parking system in the village commercial zone. And then also, I was looking at inventorying our business community to see what our direction of effort should be on economic development. And from that, doing the inventory and actually visiting the sites and talking to various business owners, I had come up with a sheet on our infrastructure condition. And principally, I think we have a major drainage issue here. Russell Street itself does not have a drainage system. So essentially that water runs down Pleasant and from the hillside down across all those properties. The streets drained essentially down by the Plymouth Inn site. It's just runoff. And when you get down on Main Street, there's one catch basin at the north end of the cleaners building and at the south end of the printers, and that whole area in between has nothing. And obviously, I don't know if 2020 is when the Water and Sewer Department is planning to do the upgrade on Main Street, but that would be a good time to add that drain inlet. Also, we need to start looking at the engineering to realign Main Street, that the Plymouth Inn site and McLean's property enters into the right-of-way 5 or 6 feet. And that should be realigned. And then the way, the street that's in between the Plymouth Inn site and McLean's property should be a sidewalk. And of course, that's an area you could use for drainage. But that needs a pre-engineering evaluation. So one of the things through my investigation, essentially our Main Street, Green Street, and all the streets in between are paper streets. They were not surveyed, located, laid out, or accepted by the town. And now that's coming back to make things difficult because there's 6 streets down in the Railroad Square area. And their names are Merrimack, Depot, Railroad Street, Railroad Square, and Unnamed Way. That makes up our names. There's only one street sign up so far, that's Railroad Street. Depot Street, excuse me. Anyway, the problem is that those streets are all private property. And the business community that wants to develop can't develop because the infrastructure that would allow them to develop isn't there. And the town can't enter the property to fix and maintain the ways, whichever what you want to call them. The infrastructure of water and sewer, that's all on private land. So now we're at a standoff here, and nobody knows how to move forward to address the issue. But one of the things I had recommended in my plan was that we needed to do to get a place across the railroad tracks to connect Route 3 to Green Street, because when this water and sewer repair goes in and they have to shut down Main Street, you're going to have all that traffic going through the residential zones. And also, this was on a plan, a 1995 Green Street plan to do this. It was on the 2001 plan, South Main Street plan, to do this development. And that needs to be, the work needs to be done to talk to the landowners, and I've actually talked to all of those landowners individually, in particular Alex Ray, to talk about getting some of that land so the town could acquire a right-of-way through there. We need to just do the administrative action to locate, survey, and contractually lay out and acquire the right-of-way, so that in the future we could actually do something. But considering that if they're going to be shutting down Main Street and diverting traffic, that would be a real handy way of moving traffic around rather than having them up in the residential zones. So I think all of our ideas about, I had found 6 new locations for parking, multi-level parking garages. All right, and the places that lend themselves because of the multi-layers of levels of our terrain. You don't need ramps, you just need the next level. The other part is, I've been, I know a lot of places around the United States, all over the world, where they have parking garages that are designed so nicely, they literally have to put a sign on it that says, this is a 4-story parking garage. You'd never know it. They blend in. So we can have our cake and eat it too as far as our parking capabilities. In a summation, when I inventoried our spaces, we have 504 to 505 physical spaces between Warren Street and Merrill, which is the end of the village commercial zone, Main Street itself, and Green Street, and the area in between behind Chase Street. I couldn't count anything down on Railroad Square area because there's no set lines, there's no properties, nothing's configured, and you can't determine what is a parking space. But I came up with 504 spaces. Now, if we have 170 businesses on Main Street, and if you use the formula of 3 vehicles per business, 1 for the business owner and 2 for employees, you need 510 spaces. All right. The other part that I'm doing inventory on is the business community, because I have the industry standard manual that talks about the types of industries you have in an area, and these are timed events. They have patterns of customers coming in and utilizing these industries, so you can have what they call shared use of parking, shared use of space. There are certain industries that get all of their customers at once. Churches, luckily it's on Sunday, theaters, okay, Silver Center. When they have an event, everybody shows up because the show starts at 6. So the other stores like Rand's Hardware, these restaurants and stuff, they may get 500 people, but it's between 7 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock at night. We don't get them all at once. But I went through the industry manual for parking design and extrapolated a lot of the data points that would help you as a planning board to be able to understand why and wherefore in our planning ordinance, zoning ordinance of our parking section, and how we can go forward for designing. This part I've done now is a phase 1, try to inventory. My phase 2 is now trying to look at our industries on Main Street, and then how do we get a plan put forward that we can start to get the citizens in the community connected with. And I think, looking at our previous plans, they were all encompassing, they covered a lot of area, and they ended up in multi-million-dollar numbers. And I'd like to say that we focus on one particular event and narrow it down so we don't have such a large number. And the other part is to see if we get more connectability to the citizens, to see how that's going to affect them and their quality of living in the town of Plymouth. And there's a lot of other data that I wanted to come in with. I have a lot of maps. Of course, the PSU has been great in getting the maps that we had. We've expanded up to full size so you can actually see what you're looking at. And the other part, things I learned is we've had several descriptions of what our downtown is. When we say downtown, what area are we talking? And so the downtown I have from other maps, like the downtown map, parking map, is an area from Parker Street to Baker River to Langdon Street to the Pemmy as our downtown. And the village commercial zone is within that. And then our Main Street, strangely enough, starts at 2 Main Street down at the end of Warren Street, and 481 up at Campton Line. That's our Main Street, legally, technically. But so when we have a discussion about downtown, that's usually one of the frustrating parts, is that people don't connect the subject to the location, so they can't visualize what you're talking about, or we are talking about. And how do we talk about different things that we need, much like the drainage issue on Russell Street affecting Main Street. And very few people have walked up behind Fox Block and the Tri-Cleaners building. And so they really don't know, they can't visualize the subject. And so I'm continuing on my work, and then one of these months here, I can bring the maps over, and you can get a bird's eye view of the areas that I've been talking about. But so,
would you like to show them this one, Frank?
Thank you, Frank.
This is the VC map.
this was, okay. Yeah, tried to, one of the thing on the parking is I wanted to get a map of, so the Plymouth State University had a map, Plymouth Police Department had a map, town planning, we're all using the same map. Because before there were several maps,
Right.
and
They weren't exactly the same.
Thanks for doing all this. This
Wow,
is wonderful.
really?
So there's a usable scale map.
Wow.
Yeah, this is what I like, something that, you can see without a magnifying glass. So, anyway, so Russell Street drainage, this is Pleasant. So all this drains right down to Webster Street. All of this area drains right down behind. Here's the dry cleaners, Fox Block. This is Plymouth Insight. This is McCain's property. So this literally runs down, and every spring we have to get, highway comes out and scrapes up all the sand because it's eroding. And so this all goes down here, and all these, those are catch basins. And you can see there are no catch basins. There's one here. And so they have got a plan, they did it last year, but they haven't got the money yet, is to put the drainage system in here to go all the way over to here, drain off into that brook. But this area here, see, this is 5 Points Road. This area here is unnamed way.
Skate park.
Yes. And this is Railroad Street. The street behind Senior, this is Merrimack Way. That's because this was Merrimack Feed, and then it was bought out by Blue Seal, and then of course Brands. This is Depot Street. And then also, a lot of people have their addresses as Railroad Square.
Right.
This is something that we need to really stabilize. And all of these, I went out with a tape measure when I did the inventory of parking here on Green Street. You have anything from 28-foot wide to 20-foot wide. And the reason standardizing the ways is critical is your ability to pass two ways, and obviously parking systems is based what you can do on the width of the road, and that's by DOT regulations. So we need to standardize that. So this area here at the end of right by Warren Street, this whole area here needs to be widened out. And now that we have an attraction here, the skateboard park, which has just finished up its latest thing, and now people are going down there, there is no safe passage for vehicles or pedestrians.
Right.
And I think this needs to be a hurry up thing, and not blindly, but we need to get a high priority on this to establish the way and acquire the surveyed path that meets the safe criteria. And then the crossing should be right here, at this intersection here. This has been removed, there's nothing here. And Alex Ray owns this. And get a crossing here, just acquire the right of way, and then we can go forward and get the permit to do whatever's necessary.
Just this initial route, Frank, that goes down and comes out between the grotto and the Lucky Dog. Like, is the town of the selectmen or others been working on legitimizing that? And
In efforts like Frank has been doing
Yeah.
with the parking committee, I've been talking to Alex, I've
Yep.
been talking to some of the other people. At this point, I would like to see in a butters meeting with
this map?
something very similar to this, showing this is what we want to do, is to take this
Right.
all the way to the skate park.
Right.
This is not a problem. When Alex Ray acquired all the railroad land, he picked up all of that and most of this.
Okay.
So it'd just be a matter that these overlapping properties actually go into the traveled way,
Right.
getting their position, permission to do it one way or the other.
Yep.
And, actually, that way we can locate the infrastructure in the center of the road like normal people do.
Yeah.
Have drainage like other people do.
Right.
And-
It's a big project.
Yeah, and certainly, probably in the not too distant future, it would have to be paved, just for maintenance, and it is built out to here. But this could remain gravel all the way down until further development comes. There's been more interest shown in the properties in the back there recently because we're out of land anywhere else.
I've had a good discussion with Alex Ray and Eric Richard owns this, and there's a lot of potential here and better utilization of basically ignored real estate. It's just, no one's even walked back there. So we need to start with the basics of locating the potential areas, getting them surveyed, and I have a copy of the same size of this that Kevin French just surveyed. So this is all
what's.
Unfortunately, the hillside doesn't impact the road. It's located on the other side of buildings from the road.
Right.
So it's pretty flat at this point. You know, it's kind of low-hanging fruit. The problem is getting everybody on board with it because they have their own ideas about it.
Because years ago, we used to go through here and come out down by the skate park.
And you
And
drive
people,
down here, cut
people
through
did
the
it
gate.
regularly.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can still get through there now or
Well,
not, but we
Water
always
and
used
sewer
to.
put a gate at the crossing.
Okay, so you can't.
This is.
Oh, you were talking about crossing.
Yeah.
I'm talking about where coming out by the skate,
Yeah.
where the skate park is to get on Route 3. We used to be able
Yeah,
to,
but you didn't have to drive down Railroad Square. You could come down past the highway department and then.
yeah,
make that
I mean,
turn.
this was years ago, like I say, I can't, but I remember we would do it frequently.
And then one of the things is, this whole area here has been, basically, this was railroad plan, this was all railroad systems. And we've had a lot of different uses in here that make it what they call a brownfield issue, because Granite Strait Petroleum Storage was down here. Railroad system buildings were here. And this area really hasn't had an environmental mitigating study, okay? And all of this has just been, over the years, my mapping that I've got is up to 1900, 1910, and this is really interesting for Main Street. And we really haven't focused on the environmental stability of this area. And I think it's two things. This is our front door from the south.
Right.
And we really need to take a study to look at the environment and then look at how we can better approach the infrastructure that would work with the environment, drainage and so on. And obviously then that establishes a flow of utilization of these properties in here that we would like to see the appropriate economic development. Now, my work in researching it is what types of businesses. There's 1,175 industries. And obviously, I did a study, they're into 20 sectors, and I did down to 10 principal sectors of industries that we have already. And then you have what they call accessory businesses. These are the businesses that work with your principal businesses in support of, and that's where the job potential and economic development is right now. But we need to look at, obviously, every one of those industries has a code and standards to live by. So you have the federal code, state, municipal, and industry code system to actually affect the business. So you have to find what I call a compatible companion industries that fit with what we have here, because this is real estate's all we have. And you have to make this work environmentally, that's to flow correctly, and you know, so it takes a lot of pre-engineering and pre-study to inventory what you have, the way you have it, and then address to see how you're going to approach, how you're going to mitigate all of the various issues. So
Keep doing it, Frank. It's appreciated.
that is exciting.
Yes.
Yeah,
The 1910 map, there were 13 railroad tracks.
that's amazing.
13 railroad tracks wide. In 1900, the town of Plymouth was a timber tourist town. Okay, and then 1910, Weeks Act came out. And that's what made a national forest.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what caused them to actually accelerate and vote and approve the Weeks Act? Was the dirt and sediment that was going down
Impacting the mills, yeah.
the Penny and clogging up Manchester's waterways. And that's when they decided we needed to start looking at it. So, unfortunately, a lot of this stuff was done, EPA wasn't here until 1970.
Right.
But, so we need to look at how we can do what I call environmental inventory, assessment, look at our mitigation issues, and then looking at our master plan goals and objectives. How do we move forward on it and I'd like to add 2 points. One, the last week's meeting with the DOT for Tenny Mountain Highway, I was downstairs talking to the engineers, and I was commenting about Riverside Landing on the issues of the sidewalks and other off-site issues. And I said we need to do a better job of connecting our impact fee system we have in our zoning ordinance. And he's, oh, well, you can't call it an impact fee. What is it? It's a mitigating fee now. It's a winter court, you can't call it an impact. But the town of Plymouth does not have a method that allows a developer such as the Riverside Landing to help the town with funding for off-site mitigating issues. If the, whatever is suggested at the time they were developing that about sidewalks or any other issues that was going to affect the town or the state, if it's not part of their plan and it hasn't gone through the process of review of their design,
Right.
then there's nothing there that holds them to a standard of accomplishment or standard of performance, because it's just an idea. And that's where we've lost in the last 38 years that I've seen of big developments that have come to the board, is that the person was very willing, but we don't have the legal framework set up in our ordinance.
Well,
in our town.
actually, we have the framework, we don't have the plan.
Well,
Wow,
we don't have the
It's
plan.
actually in the regs, the impact.
Something that we can point to.
sounds daunting.
It is. It's just this.
Thank you, Frank.
Thanks a lot, that makes it
Impressive.
so easy to understand it. It's just, what's the first step?
Yes.
Million steps.
All right. Anything else from the board?
I don't think there's anything else, is there?
I have one thing.
What?
This is my resignation.
Are you kidding me? Why?
It's just too much in my life. I got a lot going on.
You'll be missed. Thank you.
And I regret that I can't continue, but it's just too much of a commitment for me. Sorry.
You're responsible for finding a replacement.
It was somebody else's replacement, and I don't know who it was, so they didn't find me.
And also another board or commission that might work for you better,
Yeah.
once you sign up now.
You're already being recruited. Right.
Maybe when my daughter's done with high school and I'm not working full-time.
Now we don't have a recording secretary.
I know, now you don't have a
Non-recording,
non-recording
yeah.
secretary. Now, who's not gonna not record?
I know.
Yeah, really. It's a big
That-
hole in the
I've been
board.
losing sleep over that issue.
Before we get too far, just
Thank
thank you for all you've done. So we
Yeah.
appreciate the time you spent with us. So thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Feel free to join us in any of our work sessions for our continuing work towards implementing the master plan.
We may call on you to vouch for us when we're ready to go to town meeting.
And I'd consider it.
Talk us up in the public.
So I think could use another member
Yes,
in general.
We announce it at pretty much every select board.
yeah,
An alternate, we take some alternates too.
Yeah.
we could use an alternate.
Has it ever been advertised, other than at your selectmen meeting, that,
I don't think so. I don't think.
No, we don't put it out like in the newspaper.
no? So, well,
Probably costs money.
Yeah.
We do a letter to the editor. The town of Plymouth is like.
The
We all
BOS
start
always
spreading the
reminds
word.
people every time they meet. I know it's been a call for the last months. If you know anybody, I've pretty much tapped out all my goodwill.
We should all just start spreading the word.
Yep.
Yeah,
That'd be good.
in earnest. Be serious about it.
All right.
Any of these students here sticking around? 'Cause, the younger population would be a
Yeah,
good target.
they just got to be a Plymouth resident.
Yep.
It's a pretty low bar. Look at us.
I know.
It's a great board. Yeah.
All right, anything else from anybody else?
just gonna
Would you
miss
like to do the
Bridget.
honors at your last meeting?
You should.
Yeah,
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Forever.
I will second
All
that.
right. All those in favor of adjourning?
Oh, gee whiz, Bridget.